Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my first ever YouTube video lesson thing about solving trig equations. Class, please forgive me. I've never tried this before. Other teachers may be doing some fancy stuff, but I'm doing the thing that I know how to do best. Write stuff down, talk, make bad jokes, and you copy my notes, try to do the work. If you have any questions, please email me. But we are going to go ahead and begin. So today's lesson will be solving trig equations, dealing with sine and cosine. You will need your unit circle for this lesson. If you cannot find yours that you did earlier in the year because you left it somewhere, well, you got two options. You have the first page in your book, or if you're looking at this right now, you obviously have access to the internet. Google unit circle. You will need to know it, and I will have an assumption that you kind of understand it from the last unit. Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is the concept of sine and cosine having a period. So sine and cosine have a period of 2 pi each. Which is also the same as 360 degrees. Also, I would like to apologize. My print on paper is not the best handwriting in the world, so if you have problems reading this, two options. Once again, please email me any questions you see, or email me any questions. Or two, you do have a textbook. They do explain it, and you do have access to Google. But the next thing that is weird, and we did discuss this in the last chapter, is tangent has a period of just pi, which is the equivalent of 180 degrees. So we're going to start off with doing a couple of questions. Now, this is different than arc sine and arc cosine. This is where we're finding all the angles that give you the information you need. So for the first set of examples, we're going to find all the angles between 0 and 360 that have a sine or cosine of the following values. Once again, you're only going to hear one take of this because I am not recording the video for a second time. So find all of the angles between 0 degrees and 360 with the following sine and cosine values. So for example 1, if I said the sine of x is equal to 1/2, well, since I am wanting the answer in degrees, because the problem does say between 0 and 360, and already I have made my first typo of the day. Between 0 and 360, you need to do a parenthesis on the 360 because we will be using 0. Since 0 and 360 have these same values, we're not going to use both of them. So the first angle that has a sine of 1/2, if you're looking at your unit circle, would be 30 degrees. So for your final answers, you have x is equal to 30 degrees, but there is one more angle on the unit circle that has a sine of 1/2, and that other angle would be 150 degrees. I may or may not have a unit circle near me just to make sure I have the right answers. Not that I would ever do anything like that. Or just notes in front of me, period. So that would be your final answer to that question. Now, let's look at a couple more examples. So for example 2, let's say the tangent of x is equal to 1. Well, beforehand, the first angle that would have a tangent of 1 is 45 degrees. So x equals 45 degrees because that's in quadrant 1. And since tangent's positive in quadrant 1 and quadrant 3, the next angle that would have a tangent of 1 would be 225 degrees. And that's your answer. So you're just looking for the angles that have these values between 0 and 360. Now for the third example, we haven't done a cosine yet, so let's say the cosine of x is equal to 1. Well, you got to be careful because the first angle that has a cosine of 1 that's in this range is 0 degrees. Well, the issue is this is one of your four corners. Now at 90 degrees, cosine is 0. At 180, it's -1. At 270, it's 0. And at 360, it's back to being 1. But since that's not in our domain that we're allowed to use, this is the only answer you would put for this problem. One more for good measure. Let's say the cosine of x is equal to negative square root of 3 over 2. Then the first angle would be in quadrant 2. So you would say x is equal to, and I'm just making sure I'm doing this right, would be 150 degrees. And then the next one would be in quadrant 3, which would be 210 degrees. And those are your two solutions. So with that being said, we're now going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to do the problems of where you find all the angles between 0 and 2 pi. So find all the angles between 0 radians and 2 pi. So I'm not a fan of using mechanical pencils. So let's say I gave you another problem where it said this time like the sine of x is equal to 1/2, which is the same problem as we did earlier, but this time I just want the answers in radians. So you would have pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. So if the problem is asking you to find your answer between 0 and 2 pi, I want the answer in radians. If the problem is specifying degrees, please put your answer in degrees. So like say we have, say the tangent of x is equal to 1, and this will be the last example of this type because really these are the exact same type of problems, just using a different unit of measurement. X would equal 45. See, there I go already. One of these days I will learn how to not make mistakes, and then at that point, maybe, just maybe, I'm still alive. So we have pi over 4, and then the next one would be 5 pi over 4. And those would be your two solutions. So at this point in today's lesson, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. So what I'll probably do is just do like short videos of each part. Now we'll label these as like part 1, part 2, part 3. This should get you through the first set of problems on the page. So the problems I would want you to do now to get started with is page 376, 7 through 23 odd. And I'm going to add more in the next video for today's lesson that you will see labeled as part 2. So we want you to do 7 through 23 odd on here. Odd answers are also in the back of the book, so you can check your answers, see if you're on the right track. And then we're going to get to the more advanced problems in the next video.